55% of companies will never hire more than 4 employees. There are thousands of these small companies in America, and they don't have an easy path. They struggle too. They are not your average companies. They are the 1004. This is the 1004 Show.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today on the 1004 Show. We're here with Elliot Roth of Spira. What's going on, brother?
Hey guys.
How are you?
Good. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you as well. So what is Spira?
Spira is a company that grows algae and then sells it as this delicious prebiotic food source. So we do that in a variety of different ways.
And who defines that it's delicious? Because, algae and delicious usually don't match.
Well, what we really did, what our true innovation is that we figured out that if spirulina, which is our main algae, is alive, then it really doesn't taste like anything at all. So we keep it as a live culture.
Interesting. And so Spira is kind of a spin-off of spirulina, the piece of algae, or how'd you come up with that name?
Yeah, well, Spira comes from two different mentalities. So one is spirulina. So we wanted to kind of like shorten, and also the second part of that is to breathe easy. So spirulina absorbs tons of carbon from the atmosphere, so it creates a better air for all of us. And it also allows you to have nutrition without worrying about getting your basic necessities.
So you're considering yourself to be in the kind of the biohacking world, right?
Yeah.
And so that is a trend that seems to be popping up a lot more recently. How did you get involved into this, and how, like, what's your background to be an expert in producing something like this?
Sure. Yeah. So biohacking has a couple of different sects, right? So one group of biohackers really prescribe to like Dave Asprey and the bulletproof diet and nutrition and everything like that. And yeah, I cater a little bit to that. Another group of biohackers does the quantified self and really measures themselves in a bunch of different ways through wearables and tracking. And I also delve a little bit into that, but really my mainstay is in do-it-yourself biology. So I started doing that when I was about 14, delving into the field of synthetic biology, which is genetic engineering and modification. So what we end up doing is tinkering around with different kind of organisms, and I really got plugged into this community back when I was in undergraduate. I was scavenging different kinds of laboratory equipment from the university, basically through dumpster diving and collecting all these different things, and put it all together in this garage where I started doing all sorts of different experiments, trying to figure out how to solve the basic physiological needs of humanity. So I experimented a bit with like keratin printing, so like taking hair, fingernails, other things like that, and printing it in different kind of forms. I experimented a bit with mushroom architecture and used mushrooms to create different architectural forms and buildings. And then I finally settled on, well, what is the core essential that everybody needs? Well, it seems like air, water, food. And so with spirulina and with Spira, I can start tackling that basic necessity of human life.
Incredible. How old are you now?
I'm 23.
23. So you've been doing it since you're 14, dumpster diving.
Mm-hmm.
Really? What happens when you dumpster dive?
So this is just a tip for everybody out there who's aspiring.
This is important, right? This tip right here. Dumpster diving tip 101.
Yeah, tip 101. So number one, make sure that you notify the person in the area in some kind of way that you're going to be going through their dumpster. Otherwise, you get in trouble with the cops. Tip number two, there's a lot of university equipment that just gets thrown away. So every time they get a federal grant, they always get brand new stuff because otherwise the money rolls back. So anybody out there who's looking for laboratory equipment or really technical equipment, my recommendation to you is to go to your local university and then ask them what is sitting in the hallway currently unused, and they'll just give it to you oftentimes.
That is really hustling 101 as well, not just dumpster diving 101. So you've been doing this for 9 years. You live in Richmond. You've gone through 2 accelerator programs now. One in Richmond, Lighthouse Labs, and then the other one is in Ireland. Yeah.
So Spira started back in February or so. Well, January, February, when I started growing spirulina for my personal consumption. I wanted a way to supplement my nutritional requirements. I'm a big space geek, and so I found this study that NASA was using algae to feed astronauts, and so I thought, good enough for astronauts. It's probably good enough for me. And I got like a little culture in the lab and started growing it and eating it. And right around April or so, March or so, I started applying to different kind of programs for Spira. And I submitted to IndieBio, which is the largest biotech accelerator program by volume. They're one of the largest investors in biotech in general. A lot of early stage companies come through there. So I applied, I got accepted, and within a month, I'd kind of turned my life around and flew out to Cork, Ireland for a good 3 months to work just on the product. So they provide a laboratory, they provide a lot of expertise, and I got to spend a lot of time delving into how to make algae grow, what to do with algae, things like that.
Where were you in the process? So I know you're about 3 months into it, but where are you in the process when you're applying to this place? Had you had anything kind of validated? You were just eating it yourself, like anything tested?
So a couple of different things. I really prescribed to the idea of design thinking. So back when I was in school, I got the chance to go through the University Innovation Fellows.
And what school again?
Virginia Commonwealth University.
Okay.
So I was studying biomedical engineering, and I got the chance to go through this program where they fly you out to Stanford's D School to take you through the steps of design thinking and how to apply that to create entrepreneurial communities. And so I got a chance to really figure out the design thinking process and apply it to a bunch of different things. So I was going through that process. You start out by really figuring out users' needs. So I had this inkling. I knew like people needed some sort of way to satisfy basic nutritional requirements, and that there was this huge problem in food supply chain. And so I started asking people what their main problems were, taking user surveys. I took probably about 100 or so different surveys.
And were you talking to someone specific when you're asking these surveys, or just anyone in general?
Not really. I mean, I kind of posted up on social media, and whoever kind of responded to these online surveys, I kind of followed up with. Yeah. And then after that, I really delved into the problem itself, and I started developing these kits to have people grow and sell, grow their own spirulina, grow their own nutritional supply. And so that's kind of what I applied with. I just had this inkling of an idea. I'd sold 2 kits. I basically gave them away to friends for pennies. And then I applied. And so...
and no one died.
And no one died.
Is that something that people freak out about a lot with stuff like this? Like the health ramifications?
So there's yes and no. So any food products, and this is another like big tip for any 1,004 entrepreneurs out there. Any food product has to go through a ton of regulatory concerns. For me, I knew that spirulina had been consumed for hundreds and hundreds of years because the Aztecs used to cultivate it and eat it. And the people of Chad still eat it by just kind of skimming it off these alkali lakes and consuming it fresh. And so I really had no worry about getting sick from this stuff. I knew I was growing it in sterile conditions, and all my inputs I was controlling. So I knew where all the inputs were coming from. I kind of cleaned out all the tanks and everything like that. And I'd done a ton of research online and to figure out how to actually grow the stuff. So I didn't really I wasn't too worried about poisoning myself or doing anything bad like that. When I had sold these kits to people, I basically removed liability as well. So because it's a kit, it's kind of like a home brewing kit where if you mess up, it's a little bit on you. But I would provide like all sorts of expertise and help along the way too. So people would call me up and be like, hey, so like it's looking a little yellowish. What do I end up doing? And I'm like, oh, you add an iron and it looks a little bit better. So yeah.
Interesting. All right. So you go to IndieBio in Cork, Ireland, and you get a little bit further down the line. And then this past fall, you were at Lighthouse Labs. Now, did IndieBio give you actually cash as well, or no?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about these accelerator programs is that oftentimes they take equity before you really have anything at all. Right. So at one hand, it's like a really huge validation of your idea. The fact that I could go to my parents and say, hey, I'm not just tinkering around in this garage anymore, that kind of is valuable. And then at the same time, it's personal validation of saying, hey, I'm actually pursuing something worthwhile. So they gave us $50,000 liquid capital and then also $50,000 in in-kind services, and took 8% in exchange for that. And so after that, we got a grant from Lighthouse, which gave us $20,000, just 0% equity taken or anything like that. It's just kind of a grant-driven program. And so spent the last 3 months going through Lighthouse, really honing the business proposition. So after I determined, like this proof of concept, this prototype of a product, I went through Lighthouse and figured out the business validation.
And you said the business proposition. So what is it?
Got you. So
make it hard for you.
So I can work two ways for this, and this is the way I normally kind of describe it to people. When you say, "Hey, like, eat this algae," a lot of people are like, "Oh, like what?" Or "Grow your own algae." It's even more kind of strange. Right. So as a means of getting people involved and engaged in spirulina, what we end up doing is we provide a really accessible food product. So as a beverage, a lot of people already consume and eat all these different healthy drinks. And so this functional beverage that people can go out and buy enables them to kind of understand and to access spirulina in a way that lowers the barrier to entry for people. So that's what we're moving towards selling right now. We'll begin as selling a powder, which is already pre-approved by the FDA, which already has all that regulatory stuff out of the way.
No, you had to get that pre-approved, or because it's something that was back with the Aztecs, it just happens to be approved already? Or did you have to?
So there's companies out there currently selling dried spirulina. So rather than coming up with like a true innovative idea in some kind of way, what we're doing is kind of copying old business models initially just to get started, to get some revenue in the door, to make it approachable to people and to be ramen profitable in some kind of way. Yeah.
And I remember you telling me before that it will mostly be e-commerce is where you're focused on right now. What type of... So you can go to drinkspira.com right now. Can you order it now or no?
No, but you can sign up for our newsletter, and we do these pop-up tastings and giveaways and events. So you can still interact and kind of get that first taste of Spira.
And when do you expect to be able to be, being able to sell online?
Yeah, we'll be shipping late, probably like early spring or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, what is the process of that right now? Like, what makes you wait so long to figure out? Like, what are you still learning that you haven't yet, and to get you to that early spring release?
Yeah, well, one of the pivotal shifts that occurred in Lighthouse was realizing that, especially early stage entrepreneurs, you can't figure out everything yourself. You need to kind of offset a lot of the functions of your business before you really begin. Because trying to do everything yourself lengthens your timeline, it lengthens, it means that you mess up as well. Right. So one of the kind of things that we discovered is if we let somebody else help us grow it, if we partner with farmers in order to help it grow, not only do we tap into this kind of network effect where we can have multiple farmers growing all the time, but we also are able to focus on other business functions. Time is the most valuable thing.
So how do you find a farmer that's willing to work with you? Like, what does that discussion look like? So starting out, it's, and I recommend this for all early stage companies, especially if you have a controversial idea, getting PR early on is one of the most valuable things you could potentially do. So we got a full page spread in the business section of the Richmond Times-Dispatch. It was like a 3-page expose. And from that, we've had a ton of people contact us. So we've gone through 2 or 3 farmers now who had some sort of interest in growing spirulina themselves. And one of them had a decommissioned spirulina farm. Turns out he was growing it like 2 years ago, and so we've been talking to him and working out some sort of contract in order to get that farm back online. And so do they just randomly heard or read about it and then wanted to reach out, or how did that kind of it just randomly happened?
So we've been really lucky in the sense that we got that article. I mean, when you tell people that you're using algae to kind of feed the world in some kind of way, it's an interesting proposition enough to write about. So, like, yeah, they came out of the woodwork in that kind of way, but we'll in the future, in order to continue that kind of contract and relationships going forward, we'll be very intentional about approaching people who we know have some sort of prior relationship with spirulina, who show interest in spirulina.
Sure.
So yeah.
Being controversial, you said, I think that's, it's a thin line, right? But I think obviously we've played it at Hatch and 1004. We play it and we play this line, but it gets people to think. And when you have a product like yours, it makes people hopefully do the thing that you want them to do, and it gets you in front of the people that you want them to. I know oftentimes I tell people that economic developments aren't growing your company. And the economic development people hate that. But when I'm talking directly to the entrepreneur, they understand that I'm speaking directly to them. And so while it is a fine line, because economic developments are a customer in some respect, at the same time, I have to tell them, hey, we're not necessarily talking about you right now. You guys have a great role in this, but you're not the role. And,
yes.
Being controversial is key. I know you've wanted to get engaged with Kimball Musk.
Yes, yeah. So I'm a fanboy. I think what Kimball Musk is doing for food systems is absolutely extraordinary. He sets up these local gardens and enables communities to really supply their own nutrition through these local gardens. And so that really meshes with kind of my mentality about the way food systems need to change.
And so you've been following him for a while, and he does a lot with food systems, as you just said. Like, if you could have someone like him on board, like, how do you find an advisor or a mentor, or those kind of next stages? Like, how do you find these people, and how do you know that they're the right fit or not, even if you don't know them?
Well, just kind of like any... I mean, here, I'll put out a controversial opinion, because we were talking about stuff that gets startups noticed. It's kind of a numbers game for figuring out the right mentors and advisors. There's tons of really amazing people in the world, but until you start hanging out your shingle and going and approaching those people, you won't know whether or not they'll respond. And so by means of contacting as many people as possible, you really up your chances that one of them will respond in some kind of way, as long as you continue to improve and iterate upon your offering. So it's kind of a numbers game. It's sales in general, reaching out to as many different people that you think could potentially be mentors in the entire world.
And I think that's something that's so true, but so many people look at even the sale piece of it as maybe it's not even sales, but this is basically a sales technique where you're reaching out for someone to get you further along the line, and something mutually beneficial. So when you reach out to these people, these potential advisors, mentors, just maybe someone from a press perspective, what are you saying to them? What's like the subject line? What's the body? How long is it? What are you doing to entice them? What are you getting them to reach out? How many times do you follow up? Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, initially it begins with a lot of research about that person. Some of the things that we've been a little lax on, but continue to improve upon this process, is creating a kind of short template in some kind of way. A couple of sentences, no more than 5 or so, but one of those sentences has to be something they're interested in that you can help them with. Really, a lot of these conversations are transactional based, at least initially. It's noticing something that somebody is doing or seeking and seeing how you can help them do that. Don't look for stuff for you initially. Try to make it so that you ask a question at the very end, so that it prompts a response. Not necessarily an open-ended question if you can, so that they can respond to it in a longer statement. But make it absolutely effortless for them to complete an action. Whether or not that means just like a short sentence-long email response that shows that they're engaged, right. Or it's a click link to connect or share something that you're doing.
So you're in a heavily regulated industry. How do you deal with that, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you've gone through already?
Yeah, so one of the things that we ended up doing really early on is go and contact the people who have already been through the process before. So if that's companies that have already gone through the regulatory environment, or that's lawyers, or that's the regulatory officials themselves. If you start that conversation early on, it really clarifies the path that you need to take in order to be approved in some kind of way. So we have regulations on the agriculture side of things, we have regulations on the food business side of things, and we have regulations on the biotechnology side of things. So each stage of our business has a different set of regulations that we have to grapple with, and the only way we would have ever figured that out is by contacting people that have done it before.
And so by reaching out to them, are you spending money with these people, or you're just asking them questions, picking up the phone?
Yeah, just asking questions. Most everyone is willing to at least take one kind of consultation, have an hour-long conversation, and walk you through the steps that companies normally take. One of the quotes that I really like is that I can see further because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. And I think that's especially true for any company going about a truly innovative concept or idea. The only way that you can do something new is if you really understand what has happened before.
Incredible stuff. So by the spring or middle of 2017, you guys will have a powder out. People can find it at drinkspira.com. That's drinkspira.com. This is Elliot Roth, the CEO of Spira.
Yep.
And again, you can find them at drinkspira.com, really revolutionizing the way that you consume products on your everyday life. So Elliot, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Business used to be tough, then we stepped in. Sleepless nights, depleted bank accounts, way too much on credit cards, plus working 24/7. All for what? Bankruptcy? Heck no. Get the exact process you need to change everything. When do I ask for the sale? Post to social media or cold call? Let's face it, business isn't for the faint at heart. Good thing that's not you. No matter what level you are in business, from the first dollar to the next million, your time and money is valuable. Knowing what to do will save you both. This platform includes 3 weeks from starting to making money course, raising money for dummies, scheduler, a calendar to schedule all of your existing content. Oh yeah, plus access to hundreds of expert workshops, business templates like legal, executive summaries, all editable. On-demand access in the car, on your laptop, or next to your partner while watching Shark Tank. Growing your business couldn't be easier. Nate just used 1004 to raise almost $64,000 on Kickstarter. Without 1004, he says, he would have not raised a penny. For more information, head over to 1004.com. That's 1000four.com.